Greetings friends and welcome to this week's Warhammer the Old World news video. So, we missed last week's video because psychology and it's not much to talk about really. It's more or less the same as it has been previously. A few little tweaks, nothing major. But this week, it's magic. Yes, finally, magic, the thing we've been waiting for. How does magic work in the old world given that there is no longer a magic phase? Well, if you want to find out, why don't you watch and find out with me? So then, here we are. This has been quite the divisive subject over on the Old World Facebook group, which, by the way, is a reasonable good place to go and get information, and a lot of disagreement about everything Warhammer Fantasy. One thing everyone is in agreement with is nobody really likes Age of Sigmar. That's why we're there. But magic, much disagreement, much disagreement. And, well, let's find out why, shall we? Here we go. This week's article, bringing us sparkle to the battlefield. Yes, indeed. So, with no magic phase, as we've discussed previously, all of the events that require magic take place throughout each of the 4 phases of the turn. So, as we go here, we've got this version of the game is set before the colleges of magic, so we don't have everything that we're used to. Teclis hasn't been and sorted that out yet and given the Empire their paltry little wizarding school. So we have now got in the core rulebook, I should say. I imagine there'll be more laws of magic in army books. You would imagine some of the more advancedly magical races would get special magical laws in their own right. But in terms of what we get in the core book, we have 8 laws. We have battle magic, dark magic, demonology, elementalism, high magic, illusion, necromancy, and war magic. So that covers most of the cores, you would imagine there. You would think battle magic kind of open to everyone, dark magic for some of the specifically more evil people, but not necessarily limited to. Demonology, chaos, elementalism kind of spread around again, high magic, elves, illusion, again more of a sort of general one, necromancy, undead, specifically Tomb Kings at the moment. Maybe they'll have their own law as well, who knows. And war, clearly orc magic, which is its own very special little branch. So this is good, and most mages will have access to 2 or more of these, and you select one law at the start of each battle, which is interesting. So it means you can't pick and choose between your 2 laws. If you've got access to 2 laws at the start of the battle, you choose the one that is most suited, I guess, to your opponent, which gives you a bit of versatility, but, you know, it does, I suppose, also limit you if you wanted to cross paths. So interesting choice there would be whether you take 2 lower powered casters to get access to both laws, or whether you have 1 higher powered caster to have the advantages that an archmage would give over a standard battle mage. So yeah, as it says, each law has 7 spells, with 1 is a signature spell that's always available to its adherents. So every magic user has a level running from 1 to 4, which is relatively classic. The higher the level, the more puissant the wizard, and the more spells they know at the start of the game. So spells fall into 6 categories, and the categories will determine which phase of play and part of the game they can be cast. So enchantment, hex, conveyance, magic missiles, magical vortex, and assailment. And we've already seen this. Enchantment and hex spells go at the start. Conveyance is a movement spell, so movement phase. Magic missiles and magical vortex are shooting phase spells, and assailment spells are close combat, close quarters spells. So, I mean, I've just read that out, but there it is for you as well. Strategy, movement, shooting, and combat phase respectively. It doesn't seem to suggest that there's a limit to how many spells you can cast as long as things go well. What is different here is that each conjuration has a casting value, and it's not such a case of having to preserve yourself a pool of casting dice. You just have to 2d6 plus your level, your wizard level, which is 1 to 4, and then if you beat the casting value, you cast it. Obviously, there's still got to be miscasts and supreme casts, which is double 1 or double 6. And if you miscast the spell, things can go terribly wrong, like really terribly wrong at various points here. Ethereal Tornadoes on a 2 to 4 on the miscast table. 5-inch blast template over the wizard. Every model, friend or foe whose base lies underneath the template risks being hit. Single strength 10, AP -4. Well, that's going to decimate in smaller units. That's going to decimate any unit with only 1 wound. And it gets a little bit better as you go down. Calamitous Detonation, 3-inch blast template over the wizard, strength 6, AP -2, careless conjuration, mispronounce a syllable, wizard gets a slap. Barely control power, wizard manages to control the magic. The spell is cast at its casting value for the purpose of dispel attempts, and that's it. You cannot cast any more spells for the remainder of the current turn. And then finally, Power Drain, a deafening boom. The summon magic is unleashed and an unnatural calm descends. So even on a miscast, you cast the spell with a perfect invocation, getting any bonuses you get from what would have been a double 6, but you cannot attempt to cast any more spells for the remainder of that turn. So there are limits to your power. There are limits, but these limits aren't always necessarily bad initially, although they do prevent you doing things later on. So if you miscast a enchantment spell in the strategy phase, that's it. Your caster is done for the turn. So still very much a duel between opposing wizards, which is important. Again, without the resource management of having dice pools, this is much more about placement and wizard level than it maybe would be in previous games. So every spellcaster can attempt to dispel their opponent's conjurations. Now that's interesting. If you've got enough, you can have multiple dispel attempts, I feel. Provided they're within 18 inches first and second level casters, but levels 3 and 4 have a 24-inch dispel range, which is significant, which again makes it much more worthwhile taking these more advanced casters with you. You've got to roll a 2d6, add your level, and go up against the casting roll of the opponent's caster. Now, obviously, you're going to have a higher advantage. If you're a level 4 trying to dispel a level 1, your 2d6 plus 4 is going to be much more effective than a 2d6 plus 1. And I think, again, on the Old World Facebook community, someone was saying it's much more like a 66% possibility that a level 4 caster will dispel your spell versus a level 2. And that's a huge bonus, but it's encouraging you to put all your eggs in that one basket. But obviously doing so, you've got your 48-inch diameter circle around which you can cast. But outside of that, if you've only got a level 4 caster, then you're restricted. And so it's an interesting conundrum, and I think you're going to see a lot of people pushing to have the best caster they can get, and then any spare points will go on a secondary caster. So, looking further into Dispel, if you beat the casting roll, the spell is cancelled. A double 6 counts as an unbinding, dispelling it no matter what the casting roll. And if you roll a double 1, then you've been outclassed in this duel, and as a dispeller, you have to roll on the miscast table, which is always interesting. So we'll see how that goes. And I'd be interested to see, because obviously it's possible to successfully cast spell despite rolling a miscast. So is it possible to successfully dispel, or do you just roll and if it's not a negative effect, nothing happens? We'll have to wait and see from the main rulebook, I think, with that one. Obviously, it says here, casting and dispel rolls can be further modified by the wealth of magic items available to wizards and by a number of special rules. Apparently a real battle of arcane wits, but also a battle of list building, which is something that is just wonderful to have back. Spending your points wisely and having the best option, making sure there's a dispel scroll or two hidden away just in case you need it, that sort of thing. Now, here's the interesting thing. If a player finds themselves unable to attempt to wizardly dispel, they may make one fated dispel per turn, an unmodified 2d6 attempt. To offset this, certain units, notably dwarfs, have an innate resistance to magic, making it harder for enemy wizards to cast spells upon them successfully. But also a little reminder that runesmiths can attempt to dispel magic, which makes sense because you've got your grumpy dwarves and they don't like magic, but they have worked out how to stop it doing its thing. So we're going to get a closer look at the Bretonnian Handmaiden of the Lely. And firstly, lovely miniature, well painted. Stat line, interesting features of the stat line here that we've not seen before. Troop type, regular infantry, base size as a stat. This is important because this is what we've been clamoring for, to understand exactly how things work and what base we're going to have to put things on. So the Handmaiden of the Lady is on a 25mm square base. And as you can see, whether prophetess or damsel, bit of a glass cannon really. Only initiative 3, movement 4, maximum weapon skill of 4, strength and toughness of 3, wounds 3 on the prophetess and 2 on the damsel, and a mere leadership of 8 or 7, and again only 1 or 2 attacks. So you're not getting a close combat character as such. You're getting someone who wants to be protected and someone who can cause devastating casualties to the enemy or real buffs and bonuses to the troops, providing you can keep them alive. But there are ways you can help with that. So magic, prophetess is a level 3 wizard, damsel is a level 1 wizard, and they both know spells from one of the 3 laws: battle magic, elementalism, or illusion. Again, pick at the start. If you want to have from both, you need 2 casters. They may be mounted, and for 30 points you may upgrade either the level 3 or the level 1 to a level 4 or a level 2, which is essential. Prophetess may also purchase up to 100 points worth of magic items, whereas a damsel may only have 50 points worth of magic items. So you can do a lot more to make a prophetess mean or seriously tough in combat than you can with a damsel. But again, multiple casters, multiple dispel attempts, you've got to balance these things out. Special rules: Aura of the Lady, Blessings of the Lady, Lore of the Lady, magical attacks, magic resistance -2. I assume that knocks off the roll, the cast roll, and Shield of the Lady. Stuff we don't know much about right now, but maybe we will. Now you get the option to mount the mage on either a warhorse, a Bretonnian warhorse, which is a bit better, or a Royal Pegasus, or indeed a unicorn. Now looking at the unicorn, here we go. This is first look at a mount stat. So interestingly, doesn't have its own ballistic skill or toughness or leadership. They are just part of the rider. What we do get is a weapon skill because it has its own attack profile and the strength 4, its own initiative value, which is much higher, and its own attacks. But it also confers an extra wound to the rider, so that 3 wounds on the prophetess would become 4 and makes it a little better for her. Base size, again, interesting, 40 by 60 millimeters, so rectangles. A decent chunk of base that actually. Equipment, hooves and horn, which count as a hand weapon, but they've got special rules. The unicorn has armor bane 2. Again, we need to know a bit more about armor bane, but we will find out, I guess, once we get the core rules. Armored hide 1. I assume that's 1 additional point to your save. Beguiling or a countercharge, which is handy. Magical attacks, which is nice, always important to have magical attacks if you can. Stomp attacks, which you get 1 of, and swift stride. So plenty of special rules going on, but again, these are the kind of characters you maybe don't want up front or as an obvious target. So if you're going to stick the unicorn in with cavalry, then you're well away, but otherwise maybe it's best to mount her, unmount her, and stick her in a unit. Because here we are, she's at her best when she's joined by a unit, as her aura confers magical attacks, which is very handy to the whole unit by the looks, and magic resistance -2 to the brave men and women she leads. And Shield of the Lady allows her to seek sanctuary in the back rank, where she can cast her spells untroubled by the aggression of the foe. So that's great, that's really handy, unless we're going to be looking at a rear charge. It really makes a big difference if you can put your casters in the back rank out of the line of fire. Now, if you're using battle magic, a signature spell is Hammer Hand, which I think we've seen before. Assailment spell 7+. A single enemy unit the caster is engaged in combat with suffers 2d3 strength 4 hits with an AP of -2. So if you're sat on the back rank, you're not engaged directly in combat, but magic slam. Do a decent amount, 2d3 strength 4, not bad. So between 2 and 6, strength 4, AP -2 hits. That makes having a caster hidden in your unit a really valuable asset. Casting value of 7+, so you're, level 1 is going to hit it most of the time. Level 4, almost every single time a level 4 caster is going to hit that. Other signature spells from the other laws: Illusion gets Glittering Robe, which you cast on yourself. Until your next start of turn subphase, enemy units suffer a -1 modifier to any rolls to hit made against the caster and any unit they've joined. So this is a handy spell, to be honest. It's casting value 8+. It's a little bit harder to cast, but -1 to hit for you and all of your unit is great. That it makes a real difference in surviving combat if you're just going to make it that bit harder for people to have a chance to hit you. Finally, for the signature spells that she's got, Elementalism Stormcall. Range 12-inch, it's a hex, so it's another strategy phase one. Casting value 7+. Until your next start of turn, the target enemy suffers a -1 modifier to its movement and initiative characteristics to a minimum of 1. Which is good. Same with enchantments. If you cast an enchantment on an enchanted unit, it replaces the enchantment. It doesn't stack, and hexes do not stack either. So if you cast on a hex unit, then whatever hex they previously had goes, and your new one slots on top. But I do like -1 to movement and initiative. So this is handy in determining who's going to go first and who's going to reach as well. It might just keep people out of combat, which is really handy if you want to perform a retreat. And then making sure that whichever unit you're going to throw in their path goes first is just going to be really useful as well. So we're at the bottom, and it does say that even though the magic system has been simplified from editions past, I'm on the side of the fact that this is a good thing. We want to streamline the turn, but we want to have the magic feature. We don't need additional resource management. What we need is spell management of how you cast, where you cast them, what your casters can do, how they interact with each other, how they change the battlefield situation, and you want that to happen as often as you possibly can. You don't want to have people saving up and just dropping a vortex on the battlefield that changes the game immediately and makes it no fun for everyone. You want this to be a back and forth between casters, or casters going at a particularly tough and magic resistant foe like dwarves. And so really happy personally about this. I understand some of the die-hard fans of 8th edition may really want their magic system back, but it's not coming back, and this I think is a decent enough approximation. And with everything Warhammer, everything Games Workshop, this will get more complicated as army books are released. They always do. Power creep, scale creep, rules creep. It happens every single time in Warhammer. Just look at the mess that 40k is in right now. It's unrecognizable from the game I started playing, and it's been unrecognizable at least 3 times in that period. So this magic phase works for me. I'm quite happy with it. So yeah, I'm quite happy. I hope you're happy too. Let's leave it there. Please do like and subscribe and share with your friends, and if you've got any comments or anything you want to mention, just let me know and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Until next week, when apparently we'll be investigating Grail Knights, Living Saints and Exemplars of the Bretonnian Way of Life, and seeing how they interact with the Universal Special Rules. So more detail, more units, more faction focus next week. I can't wait. Until then, take care.